तिकडे टाकायला.
Good evening, one and all. Let me begin today's webinar after seeking the blessings of Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and Krantivir Savitribai Phule and the great teacher, Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. All these great personalities have devoted their lives for the education, educating the people. Krantivir Savitribai Phule is considered the first woman teacher who started the school for girls in Maharashtra. Salute to them. I wish you all happy Teachers' Day. I salute all the teachers as they are considered the warriors in the present pandemic situation. Salute to all the teachers, and eMELTA wishes you happy Teachers' Day. After getting the blessings of Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, Savitribai Phule, and Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, we will start this webinar. My dear friends, I welcome you all for today's webinar. eMELTA, that is the entire Maharashtra English Language Teacher Association, is non-government, non-political, and non-commercial association of teachers of English in Maharashtra. The association works as the catalyst in the field of education. Its vision is to make Maharashtra educational hub of English language teaching learning practices. Its mission is continuous professional development for the teachers of English in Maharashtra, and eMELTA provides the platform to the national and international speaker to present the ELT practices happening in all over the world. I welcome Dr. Umesh Pradhan, the former convener of SSC board and coordinator of HSC board. Welcome, Dr. Umesh Pradhan. I welcome two international speakers today. We have Ms. Sheryl and Nivesh ma'am for the today's webinar. Today, our webinar number is 71, and the theme of the today's webinar is Challenges and Solutions for Remote Teaching. Now I request Shaileja Mure ma'am to introduce our today's speakers. Over to Shaileja Mure ma'am.
Well, happy Teachers' Day to all of you. And with great pleasure, I wish to introduce to you a personality from the Central Plains of the United States, Mrs. Cheryl Mccoy. Mrs. Cheryl Mccoy is celebrating more than 45 years of teaching, that's decades of public school setting. She holds a BS, a Bachelor of Science as it is called, and an MS degree, as well as additional certifications and training in 3 integrated learning areas: STEAM, STEAM, English Language Arts, Psychology, and the Social Sciences area. Because Cheryl believes that learning belongs in the life path of students. She's gathered an extensive repertoire of special education courses, learning, and training. She uses this expertise to implement individualized educational programs that span preschool to college level interactions and courses. Sheryl ma'am teaches online and face-to-face, implementing her unique fusion of teaching tools, inquiry-based skills, and interests. Today, Cheryl lives with her family on their sustainable farm in the Central Plains of the United States. India and eMELTA is happy to have you, Mrs. Cheryl Mccoy. Can we say hello to you, Mrs. Cheryl Mccoy? Hello and good evening. We have another eminent speaker, Nives Torresi, all the way from Italy, a teacher at Classical Studies High School of English Conversation and English Drama, English Exam Preparation, Cambridge, FCE and PET, Erasmus Plus projects, and Business English to local corporations. Nives also translates from Italian to English, specializing in business manuals, historical archives, and medical papers. Works as interpreter and mediator for business negotiations. Teaches online using interactive learning platforms via Pegasus One languages. Participates actively in online teacher training and development courses such as Moodle for teachers and teaching with technology. Interestingly, Madam is a Google certified educator and uses G Suite apps for schools. There's much more to be said about Nives Madam, but if I continue saying that, we will lose out on the time that we would want to spend with her. So, ma'am, just a quick thing I want to tell you. Ma'am says, follow me on WIZIQ. She has English for blogging, Nives recipes, her own YouTube channel, a Twitter handle, a Vimeo videos, Nives on SlideShare, and has her own Flipboard, Pinterest board, SoundCloud, Scoop It, not ice cream, but Scoop It for knowledge, and that's where Nives Torresi has it in a LinkedIn profile. Ma'am, I would love to go further and introduce you for all your credly badges and academia, but we in India would want to hear you more. This can be given to them a little more. So you'll have to pardon me if I have to cut short a little bit on your thing. Though interestingly, she has webinar presentation on a very interesting series. One Foolish Monkey series on history of blogging with co-teacher Tom Hodges. Scope 15, connecting online live conference, understanding fair teaching and micro teaching online with Tom Hodges. And interestingly for all of us, play, learn, and grow together. And therefore today, ma'am, with you we will want to play and learn and grow together. Greetings from India to both of you. Welcome to India. Thank you very much and a happy Teachers' Day to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Over to Ajay, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for the introduction of both the speakers. And now I hand over this session to both the speakers. Yeah. Unmute your microphone, ma'am. Yeah, and it's a request to both the speakers of today's webinar. Uh, please go slowly so that teachers can understand very easily what you're speaking. It may be the pronunciation or the way you speak. So that's why it's a request to you all, both the speakers, please go slowly so that we can understand it very clearly. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. I need to be able to share the screen, I think.
Yeah, you can share, ma'am. Yes, you can share the screen and you can record the session also. No.
Yeah, that's happening on another channel. I'm just now going to share the screen. Okay, can you see my screen at the moment?
Not yet, ma'am.
Not yet.
Okay, all right.
Oh my.
Yeah, it started now.
There we go.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay, all right. I don't know why I was seeing that, but anyway, okay, great. So I shall begin and
Yes.
then I'll pass over to Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl, can you hear me? Because I can't
Yes.
see you anymore. Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, there you go. All right, so challenges and solutions for remote teaching. Sheryl and I are very happy to be here today, sharing our recent knowledge that we have learned from remote teaching and also our own past experience in face-to-face teaching and also teaching online. We have together over 40 years of teaching experience. We have collaborated on many projects online in the Moodle for Teachers site, and also we have moderated and presented on many occasions over the years. So over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Nevis. So we'd like to take this opportunity to thank eMELTA for inviting us to collaborate in this live webinar. We hope to give you an insight into the challenges and solutions that we encountered in the recent lockdown during the past school year as the pandemic began. We both tackle diverse age groups and have been able to collate an overall experience which will make any future remote teaching situations a breeze. This level of achievement happened because we believe that humans are born to learn all through their lives. We believe in a positive growth mindset. This is the beginning idea that makes teaching valuable for us and our students. Believe it or not, you also have that positive growth mindset. You believe that you can learn all through your life, since this is the basis of the philosophy of teaching. Otherwise, why would there be teachers? Now let's think about this important question. What would you like to learn today? Every day, that's a good question to ask. The presentation slides will be made available in the Facebook group for eMELTA, and any questions will be tackled at the end of this presentation. One thing we really appreciate is if you think of something as we're speaking about a topic, please jot down your questions at the end of the webinar in the chat so we can see them and answer them live at the end of the presentation. And we thank you so much for having us here. Off to you, Nevis.
Okay, so let's first understand what we mean by remote teaching and remote learning. The virtual lesson, online, live, is the synchronous lesson, which although we use a webcam And sometimes we can also access a grid view of students. We may feel like a normal we may feel that it's a normal face-to-face classroom, but not necessarily is it. The asynchronous lesson can also be a flipped lesson format, or simply the carrying out of an activity or a homework task, for example. The two can also form a blended learning approach. The remote teacher will have to understand also allow their students to understand the sharing and collaborating features of the didactic materials for learning and completing activities online using either a textbook, interactive documents, forms, surveys, cloud sharing, and so on. The underlying points to reinforce in remote teaching also involve preparing and sharing the complete syllabus. Often, this will be a revised edition from your normal face-to-face classroom syllabus. A good idea is to list the competences and the soft skills that your students will need to achieve during the remote learning period or the duration of the online course. Sometimes the remote teacher will have to deal with new participants. So it's really important to get to know everyone in the remote environment at the very beginning. Make sure to help them become a part of the whole lesson. Communication is the key. Over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Nevis. This is a short list of some things that you may have already seen or may see when you're working with students online in a remote setting. So it's that we listed this as school online negatives. And remember, every negative can become a positive. It's just one dimension of a positive. Your job is to figure out through observation and asking questions, why is this a negative behavior happening? And how can I, as the teacher, help my student turn this into a positive behavior for learning?
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Can someone mute that, please? Thank you. Okay. All right, so you want effective learning. So if we have shy, that could be because we found out that that was often because of no webcam. Why won't the student use their webcam? And I don't know if you've had this problem or if you've seen this before, but one reason that I discovered when I ask my students, and that's critical, ask your students. If there's a problem, don't just immediately think, oh, that child doesn't want to learn, because remember, we're working with a positive mindset. We believe every child wants to learn. We just need to figure out how to make that happen for them. Many children have lots of anxieties, and especially now they have many anxieties about where life is going to be heading with us. So ask your students, what is it that's causing you not to want to use the webcam? They told me that they just couldn't, they were shocked to see themselves. So we would talk about, well, what does that mean? Are you not in the classroom normally? Or is it just that you're not used to seeing yourself on the computer screen? And come to find out, it was when students are on the computer screen, they are out there and they're visible. They are there. Whereas in the classroom, they can't see themselves. And so students may feel a little nervous. They may see little things that they do, maybe touching their hair or whatever, anything that might make them feel like, oh, why did I do that? So we need to help the students practice seeing themselves. This seems rather simple, but those are things that you should not skip over. These psychological underlying techniques and ideas are a way for you to set your class up in such a way that everybody's going to be happy to be there, glad that you are their teacher, and happy that you are helping them. So another reason and solution that Nevis and I discovered, if the students believe that their physical home background is not what they want to show the others in the class, because some students' homes, they don't have a good place, maybe their lighting's not as good as that should be, any kinds of things like that are a real problem. So what we found out was Zoom and some of the other video equipment, video apps have backgrounds that can be simulated. They can be at the beach or whatever. And if we teach the kids in a fun way to use those, then they're actually going to be doing two things: feeling more confident about seeing themselves in the image, in the video, and then also more confident about not worrying about what's behind them. If their parents walk through or their little brother comes and tries to smile or laugh. So the next one is angry. And we found the students were most angry when they didn't have a textbook. And there's a lot of, you could talk about this topic for quite a long time because many questions came up about this. And this also includes input from parents. Okay, for instance, not having their materials when they begin class, lack of access. See, and that's not just no textbook, that's having a syllabus or having access to a laptop or a computer. Some of the students may only have a phone. Do they have internet access at home? Can they go somewhere at the time of the meeting that you're having your meeting and have access? So these are all things that can, when we become anxious, sometimes our first response is to become angry or frustrated with others. So remember, the text is only one tool, but the internet, once you can get them on, I know our school, we had to do this so fast. It just happened so suddenly in March that all of a sudden we were dealing with issues that we hadn't dealt with before. Some people don't have internet at home. So we had to try to make sure that we could get access. Fortunately, some companies helped get that happening. And they didn't have computers. So then within a week, the school said, okay, if you don't have a computer, when you come up, because students would come to school to get their meals or get their paperwork. Some people were using paper, and that's fine too. That's another way to overcome this problem. We would check out a Chromebook, and so the kids would have that. Then on the internet, you need to spend some time. And again, I'm telling you these things that they may seem like things that you should not have to do, but these are, if they are having trouble with this, these are things you need to spend time doing. And that means including how to get to online libraries that can provide information access, provide a simply organized syllabus with assignments and lessons that students can answer on the internet, and make sure that everybody can use what they need to use. So another thing that was concerning to us was students being confused. One of the biggest reasons they were confused is there was no social connection. And you know how it is when you can't communicate with your friends. Oh my gosh, it's like you can't really figure out your place in the world. We're humans and we're social creatures. We depend upon social interaction, and that's how our kids are learning everything from the basics in the beginning. And even high school and college students will have that, feeling of frustration if they don't have things. So they can be confused. Many are using different apps, so they weren't in the Zoom meeting. Think of your students as being in their own little rowboat. Okay, that's the way I like to think about it. They're all in their own little boat, and you, as the teacher, you have the lead rowboat. So you need to get the students to come together with all their little boats and put them in a flotilla. In other words, make it a parade. Another constant comment was they were frustrated. Again, no internet, always discuss problem solving. How are we going to make that happen? And I know I spent a lot of time on the phone with people until they got their internet service, and that's not a problem either. Use the phone. Many people only have a phone, but try to figure out how it's going to happen. Can they get to a library? Can they go to a friend's house? Do they have grandparents or other extended family members where they can go? Try your best to make all lessons light in using the internet sources. Use the internet, but use it in a way that's most effective. Don't make it something that they have to do everything on necessarily. You can have offline activities. For instance, I saw someone was using little activity for making lunch, and that was something that they worked up a little problem about speaking in English. So again, and especially if you're teaching people speaking in English, look at your common everyday things such as eating, talking with a friend, going to the store, going to the market, making things available to students, letting them speak English. Don't worry about fancy stuff. Get your simple things done first. Since many students only have phone, their access to images is limited, and other materials are limited by their internet speed or the data capabilities. And if they only have a flip phone, they may not even be able to see an image. So you have to find out what it is that they have. And then hopefully, I think during this time, this has been one of the first times in our country in a long time where our leaders figured out, oh my gosh, this is why they were talking in 1999 about how important it is to have internet access. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes it perfect for all of us to start saying to them, this is a time for you to help us help the country, help them be patriotic. All right. So another one is being an introvert. You don't have to be shy to be an introvert. A lot of times introverts are the most talkative people in the whole group, but they're the kind who also like to sit in the back and read a book or, just listen to other people. If they haven't been talking or getting involved, you'll know that because they're not speaking. That's when you want to try to encourage them to use chat, which brings up the next one. If kids are being hesitant, they'll talk, but they don't have any questions to ask. Well, then ask them to use chat and write their questions and ideas about the lessons. And you as the teacher are modeling that. So today, that's why we've asked you, if you have any kind of a thought or an idea about something in the lesson, ask the question, make the comment in the chat, and you are modeling what you want your students to be doing also. So we model what we want students to do. It sounds simple, but sometimes as teachers, we forget those things. So we're going to practice this today so you can see how to help your students share their ideas and questions online. Over to you, Nevis.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so now let's have a look at some of the positive behaviours. So some of the solutions that we can have in the online classroom. The basis of a positive set of behaviours in the online classroom depends on routine. I know this seems like old hat, but really routine is at the basis of a lot of things, especially where children are concerned or where young students, young teenagers are involved. So we need to make sure that our students adhere to a common routine just as if they were going to school physically, like getting up, having breakfast, washing up, and dressing for school, connecting online at regular intervals, and actually carrying out the set tasks that are part and parcel of the learning process. Adhering to a routine will make students more diligent in their homework. For example, students need to organise their homework and carry out the activities either on their own or by working in groups. At our school, many students during the lockdown actually improved their grades. A routine will also help them to be more motivated in their study. As they are in control of their environment, they can stretch their legs, they can eat or drink during a class, they can even talk with the teacher or their classmates using the chat box. Plus, the home environment provides just that, a home, a safe place. Hyperactive students were the turnaround for our school. They could move freely and actually became more attentive in class. That was the real surprise. A routine can help them actually to be more social. Chatting happens through texting either on their phones or on their PC during the class or even after the class or before the class. This is happening all the time. They either have a private, a group or a class chat. They can also meet online for virtual meets. I insisted and asked our supervisors, our admin supervisors, to make sure that students could have access to create their own online meetings to study together. I preferred that they used the Google Meet, which was part of the G Suite that we had at our school, because it provided a safe domain. Not all schools are happy with this idea. They think that perhaps students should be using other software to meet on their own without a teacher. But as I always say, it doesn't actually use up anything, doesn't use up the school's Wi-Fi. It uses up their own internet connection, and their own time. So let them use it if it's in the domain. That's the way I see it, but I may be wrong. So we found that this actually led to less visual class disruption for the teacher and students in general. So they actually listened better. They were more attentive when they knew that they could meet at the end of the lesson, before the lesson, in the afternoon, and had their own conversations. So really, the classroom became a much more progressive and effective classroom. A routine can also help the students to work together in groups and actually teach them and allow them to be more cooperative amongst themselves. The online environment is much more conducive to group work. They can work simultaneously on documents, presentations, and even in my classes, for example, on dramatic plays. The group work outside the school hours, this is what we found, was even more productive because the onus was on them and they did take on the responsibility. It's really amazing how much students will do when you give them the opportunity. Remember, the online environment is always connected with whatever LMS you choose or your school has chosen. Students can access the LMS, the Learning Management System, or the digital textbooks on all their devices, from their telephone to the tablet to the computer to the PC to the laptop to whatever. Where there are no issues with the internet, then digital material with autocorrect features that we used a lot was a bonus. And what does that mean? It means like a quiz created with an autocorrect where the students, as soon as they finished the quiz, had the answers, which was great. It meant I didn't have to do any correcting apart from checking the final spreadsheet and adding the marks in the roll book. Other than that, the students had their own learning in their own hands. The students were always engaged because the online environment is essentially interactive. Whatever the student does means interacting constantly with the digital tools that they have in front of them in one way or another. For example, the online lesson will see a spate of texting between them, even on their phones and not just in the chat box. Sometimes they will say, oh, I missed the page. What page is the teacher up to now? Or what topic are we on? And what is she talking about? I don't understand her. And this will go on and they'll help each other, which is more than can happen in a real classroom. In a real classroom, they can't talk to each other. We tell them not to use their telephone if we're doing a presentation in class, so they can't use their phone, and they're frustrated because they may want to communicate and they can't. So the constant communication actually meant more engagement in the lesson. Even shy students engaged better, that because they were less self-conscious. So I'm going to show you quickly now a video, and I hope it works. I need to, if I click on this, it should take me. There we go. Now this is, I'm just going to pause it. I hope you'll be able to hear it. Need to start that again. This is a video ad that was made in Italy during the lockdown, and it shows you don't have to worry about not understanding the Italian, but basically it talks about communicating and working together online as a class. So it's only 30 seconds. Let me know if you can't hear it. Cheryl, put your hand up if you can't hear it.
Can't hear, ma'am. Can't hear.
Can't hear it. I did share. All right, let me share the. Let's check the sharing settings. Share computer sound. Okay, let's try that again.
It's working.
Now we can hear.
Dove eravamo rimasti?
Pagina 192.
Ok. Guarda, vuoi provarci tu? Sì, provo.
Prof, posso andare in bagno?
La Giga Network di Vodafone è ogni giorno più affidabile e potente, perché anche quando non possiamo stare vicini, possiamo essere insieme.
Sorry. Okay. So that was a quick ad just to show you that how things changed in the online classroom, that the social connections did happen where it was allowed to happen, where that strictness of the classroom was left open and allowed the students to actually really communicate. The next slide is over to, I'm going to do the next slide. Yes? Okay. So the next slide is very important to understand the use of educational learning apps. Now, a lot of the times we think that an app, because we can use it, students can use it. This is not the case. Remember that we look at apps as a didactic view, with a didactic view in mind, whereas students look at the app as an obligation rather than a game. So where we think it may be a game, they don't always think like that. So bear this in mind. The use of educational apps should be set against the requirements of your curriculum. Do not overuse apps or rely just on apps to complete the syllabus objectives. The apps should allow for self-paced activities that are interactive, create curiosity, allow for engagement, and motivate the student to want to continue the learning outcome. Very important. In my class, I use a few select apps that allowed for speaking practice, which is important in the English language learning classroom. For this task, I opted to use Flipgrid by creating topics based on the textbook activities that we were studying or on grammar points. Some of our teachers used a quiz style when they wanted to test at the end of a unit. So they would use a quiz style, for example, like Kahoot or something similar. You can create your own web quests using hyperdocs or hyperlinking text images, even in slide presentations. There are so many apps, but I always admonish using too many apps and stick to a qualitative few. I prefer my students to learn something new at their own pace. They are digital natives, but not when it comes to didactical digital tools. That's more the teacher's specialty. Remember to make it fun and enjoyable. Give them the possibility of putting the learning onus in their hands. Responsibility leads to mature learning habits, which is what we want them to become. We want them to become independent learners that learn by doing. Okay, Cheryl, it's over to you.
Thank you. Yes, those are specific things. I know that we all talk about various web applications and go, this is great, this is great. I use this, I use this. But it's best to keep it simple, especially in the beginning. Pick the one that you think you'll have the most effective outcome from with your students, or the one that your school or curriculum unit has decided is the best one. Because I can tell you, when you're trying to learn a second language, often, even if it's a language that you've been around, that's been around you, you hear it, you know, you see it, but you have not actually had opportunities to speak, it's really good to have some oral type of skills app to use. Flipgrid is really good, as Nevis had mentioned, because I remember when I was in my later in times of learning Spanish as a second language, I would do pretty well, I thought, until I had to actually go out and use it. One summer, I lived with a family, a friend of mine, whose staff spoke only Spanish. And so I wanted to wash some clothes. Well, the lady who took care of the laundry would not let me do that because she was supposed to do that. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, I then had to remember all the words and all that. But if I had practiced those simple, see, those are simple life skills. If I had practiced those simple life skills, like on a web application, and actually got to talk the story, basically, then it would have been so much easier for me. But I started getting anxious. And remember, all the negatives that we're going to see here are related to anxiety. And anxiety is a good thing, but too much of it makes us freeze. And kids freeze, and then they get embarrassed. So use these, but use them sparingly. Now, we have listed some that we think are pretty good to start with. Things like Wakelet. Now, some of you may have used Padlet. This is similar to Padlet. Socrative which is a lesson type web application. Flipgrid, which is that short little video that you can make. And it's got some little, kids like it because you can add little pictures and things like that to it. And there's only the pictures that are available in the software. So you have control over that, the fact that you know that it's going to be appropriate. Google Forms, Google Docs, Google Presentations, anything like that. Quizlet is really good for simple asking questions, the type things. And then Kahoot, of course, is a lot of fun because once the kids learn how to use it, they use it for games. And I know when I was teaching in the math class this past year, I was teaching 8th graders, and they would be just pre-algebra type students, and they loved Kahoot. They would take Kahoot. Fortunately, they had already learned it, but I mean, I would have taught them how to use it, but they knew how to use it. And so what they would do is I would give them a topic. I would say, pick something in this topic. So then they would pick out a topic, and then they made some of the coolest games with the Kahoot, and they loved it. And then they liked sharing and challenging each other to their game. So pick your web applications according to their quality rather than frivolous characteristics. Sometimes somebody will say, oh, this is the best thing in the world. You know exactly, it's so pretty and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not necessarily a quality item. That's a frivolous characteristic. To achieve an appropriate evaluation of web applications, I'm just going to give you a real simple little idea. Is it useful for teachers and students? Does it cover a broad number of opportunities for student learning? Is this web application going to give you an effective learning of the desired curriculum, such as English, speaking English, writing English, whatever you want to do? Is it easy to use? Is there stress on the available technologies that's limited? In other words, does it have a light weight on your internet capabilities, or is it just a energy hog? You know, there are energy hog web applications, and some of them are really marvelous, but they are not they're not conducive to good teaching and learning. While there are a grand variety of fun web applications, the effective teacher must consider the context, and context is key, of their teaching and learning. That includes what your school, your government, and other educational stakeholders, including parents, hope that you will achieve. There are just a few of the web applications that these are just a few that Nevis and I frequently use. These applications, along with others, are critical mainstays for effective teaching and learning. We can answer basic questions about them today, or we can provide a more in-depth workshop on the topics needed to make the use of web applications and make your teaching more effective. All right, next. Digital citizenship. Sites to get started. Digital citizenship is key. It's a key component. Another one of those, it's kind of like you don't want to build a house on sand. You build your house on sand, your house is going to fall apart. But if you have a good foundation, your house is going to be sturdy. Now, that's digital citizenship. It is your foundation. It's a hot topic, and there are many well-planned and prepared curriculums for all age groups that are available online. This is very important to Nevis and I. We believe that the core idea supporting any learning or training in digital citizenship begins with a commitment to the idea that learning is a positive sum opportunity to help our students grow and develop through a combination of trial and error. And this, I'm going to tell you this, that when I was little, when we would be in school, you know, you sat in the little desk and you didn't move and you didn't talk out and you didn't get excited and you didn't do, you know, you were just like there, you know. And even when I was in college, until, I don't know, the late 90s, and even then, even now, some people don't, it doesn't work very well. But everybody has these expectations of putting you in a box. And you know what it reminds me of? I know maybe you all may not be Star Trek fans, but I am. I love sci-fi. So when they made that new alternate reality Star Trek with Chris Pine and those other kids, when they were showing the Vulcans learning, and they were in those big half bubbles down in these little holes, that's what it reminded me of. I thought, oh my gosh. I mean, I know that probably looks attractive in one way. Oh, they're right there, they're learning, blah, blah, blah. But what are they learning? They're only learning that little, whatever's in that bubble. Remember, it's like when Spock came back and they were like asking him all these questions and they're answering so fast and fast. And then it says, how do you feel? And how do you feel? And his mother comes up and she goes, yes, Spock, you're half human. How do you feel? Well, exactly. We can't leave half of who we are as humans out of the learning equation. So that is another reason. You need to make sure that these concepts are something that kids can learn and develop. We guide this process. So we don't have to have bedlam. We don't have to have everybody talking at once and all that. You can have a process, but you need to give kids, see, that's where this online thing, the chat comes in so well. Chat and texting is a way for kids to express themselves, but they're not blurting out all the time. We want to familiarize ourselves with core concepts of digital citizenship, just as we do with our own subjects, such as mine are math, science, things like that, speaking English, so that we can assist in the learning by our students. Teaching your students that digital citizenship is the highway with communicating with others, where they travel, where they communicate with others anywhere on the earth. In other words, everybody shares this digital citizenship now. And I will tell you that the European Union has been a leader in this. They have a lot of good information that they've all agreed on as countries. And they have said, yes, we're going to do that. But I don't know how it is in India. You're a big country too. You may have issues or not with this. You may have it all under control. But I know where we are, some things are suggestions. And they shouldn't be suggestions. Everybody should say, don't we all agree that we want to create a safe space for students? Don't we all agree that we want to have a good way for students to learn? Don't we all want to agree that we're not going to be rude to each other? Don't we all agree? This is digital citizenship, just a tiny part of it, but that is. This is the road that we can all use to greatly enhance student success in learning English. They will learn what's important, what's safe, and what's central to achieving a level of respect from other people that your students will encounter and interact with online. Okay, so next. Digital citizenship. This is an extension of what I was just speaking about. Start with this list. This list of digital citizenship courses online. Some for teachers, some for your students. And there are some really cool ones that you can have that have lessons and activities that students can share with. Now, while Nevis and I use many websites from a variety of trusted, reliable sources, she and I both consider Common Sense Education's digital citizenship lessons to be a go-to resource. Now, I want you to look at this on the screen here. That's that first link. So if you're just getting started, go to that first link, go there. I'll tell you why I like it in particular. You are not just getting digital citizenship. They also give lessons in a variety of things, and they also talk to you about things that you can do to make your remote learning easier, better, more effective. And what's the whole key? Remember, we're going to make a positive growth mindset, and we're going to make it more effective. Effectiveness and efficiency are the two key components. So When you go here, you've got like a huge library that's just dealing with that. Now, these others are awesome also. So you see, you have others to build back on. Now, you may have something that is directly related for you. I personally like groups who are non-political. Well, not that you could be non-political, but apolitical. No, they try to involve everybody. We're not going to talk about one religion. We're not going to talk about one government. We're going to talk about the things that everybody shares, not in that other stuff that's just extras. So when you go there, you'll see all kinds of cool stuff that you can use to learn what you want to teach your students. They also provide information about how to judge the validity and appropriateness of educational resources. That's how I first got to know them. I was looking for a guidance on particular educational resources, and I got a link that went there, and that's how I found out all about them. Oh my gosh, it was like, wow, this is huge. This can help you steer clear of controversy and find clarity of purpose. Most of the resources available offer a training course for educators, which we strongly recommend. While our students remain in remote learning, we need to ensure that they understand how to navigate safely and securely. Over to you, Nevis.
Well, that brings us over to our question time. So I want to thank everyone for listening. As we end our presentation, the slides that is, we would appreciate if you would please go ahead and add your questions in the chat now so Cheryl and I can answer or discuss them with all of you. I've not been able to see the chat during the presentation, so I'll stop sharing the screen and I will share in the chat in just a moment a copy of the slides. It's a link to Google Slides that will force you to make a copy. If you don't have a Gmail account, then just say so in the chat and we can organize to have the PPTX available in the eMELTA Facebook page. Is that okay with you, Sahibra?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay, over to you then.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. It was very informative session. We got a lot of ideas. The resources that you have already displayed here in the webinar. Thank you very much for that. Now it's a request to the participants. If you have questions, please, you can write in the chat box or you can raise hand or you can use the raise hand option. You can ask the questions. By the time, I'll request Dr. Umesh Pradhan to have his opinion. Yeah. Unmute the microphone, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much, both of you. It was very, very interesting session. And for me, it was a nice example of team teaching. We call it as team teaching. So that's for the first time we have experienced that how you can make it interesting and how you can save your energy, because we here go on talking and talking for 1.5 hours and 2 hours and so on, but you have shared, and that was a very nice example for us in team teaching. Today is an auspicious day for us because we celebrate it as a Teachers' Day all over India, and that's in the memory of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, our president, and that's the auspicious day where we are celebrating almost with your session. And so it was a golden opportunity for all of us to listen to you. The teachers are facing challenges. And what I have experienced, that both the teachers and the students are within these 6 months are really, let me tell you, they are tired, They are tired of conducting these sessions with electronic media, technology, so on and so forth. It might appear that it has come as a rescue. Still, being teacher, I feel I have experienced that the teachers and the students are not really enjoying their learning. It is almost one-sided. It's almost like forced on them. I really appreciate the point that you have made, and that was about try to understand your students. So it's very important that we when we conduct any online teaching class, that we should know our students, what they are, and the points that you have raised, that negative, how to make negative into positive, that was really worth appreciating. I have but some few questions also, but before that, I would say our students are, as you said, they are shy and angry and confused and all that. But what I've found that most of our students are curious. That curiosity is there, that yes, they want to learn with this medium, and they're eager to know. They're eager, how and when are you going to test us? Because in our Indian scenario, the importance is given for evaluation. Most of the time, more than teaching and learning, the evaluation plays a very important role. And the children and the teachers are worried about this evaluation all the while, all the time. And let me tell you that because of this COVID, the students have unnecessarily become responsible. They are acting like adult, matured persons. And I have my grandson of 8 years, and I see that he has lost his what we call as a kid curiosity and kid enjoyment, that he has lost, and he has started listening and watching the online and all that, and all the time glued to the screen. So that's really a problem that is worrying me. Then yes, then some of my questions from my side, like I would like to know, have you turned to online teaching due to COVID, or was it there as a routine sort of thing for you? That's the first thing. Then we have lots of hue and cry about the physical problems that the children are facing, because since they are glued to the screen, the technology, for more than 3 hours, 4 hours in a day. So the parents and the students are complaining about the physical problem that they are facing. So what about that? Then the next one is, what about any experience of cyber crime? Because the schools are worried that the children, maybe they connect themselves with Zoom meeting and all that, but they keep their videos off and then they go on playing mischief. So what's your experience about this cyber crime sort of thing? And the last one is that, well, as far as language is concerned, we are worried about the skills development and not the content part of it. Our teachers are more interested in passing on the content, but then what about the skills? So I'm rather worried about this. And these are some of my questions.
Could you repeat the first one? I'm sorry, I'm a real visual person.
This online teaching, was it a routine sort of thing for you, or is it due to COVID that you have switched over to online teaching?
Okay. I'm going to say one thing here, Nevis, because that one jumped out at me for most. When we were going along in the beginning of March, I'm like, why are we here at school? You know? And so other countries were dealing with this differently. So as time went on, I mean, we're talking about hours, not days. Our school district was worrying about it too, as was our state board of education. And we were not getting any relevant information from our national education government facilities. So what happened was our superintendents, that's the head of a town or a school district, our superintendents were calling out their group, the superintendent's over umbrella personal group. It's not necessarily attached to the school. And then they contacted the commissioner of education, and within a few days they had like a plan, you know. And I know people here, I live in Kansas. I've always been proud to live in Kansas. Kansas has had kind of a black eye for the last few years, but I will say it does not flow down to the people. We're still very organized, very proactive. We want everybody to learn. We love kids, and not just the teachers love kids. Everybody in town loves the kids. If you ask for something, if you need it, they'll make sure it happens. And so there was a plan, there was a curriculum, there was everything all lined out. And so Nevis and I had already taught. So for me, I was like, hey, this is not going to be a problem. But other people had already been using Google Classroom in the school. So fortunately, we already had some background, and there were a few teachers that were in trouble. But what we did was people who did know how to do it were helping them, you know, behind the scenes. And it happened really fast. It was like, boom. And as I mentioned earlier, that's when we found out where the holes in our community were, you know. Because I've taught for so long, I know all this history, right? Back in the 1990s, President Bush and President Clinton tried to get fiber optics for the entire country and tried to get as many computers as they could into every school. And their idea back then was one-on-one. So we're talking 1980s, 1990s, and it really looked like a real possibility. And then things kind of fell apart. So this was a wake-up call to us. It was a real wake-up call. Oh my gosh, there are kids in our community, and we were talking about it. Everybody in town was talking about it. There are kids in our community only have a phone to get onto the internet. And I'm talking a flip phone, you know, the old kind, the clamshell, not a little like smartphone like this. You know, this is great. But and then when people were finding out that, they were like, well, let me give you my old smartphone, because even though it doesn't have a SIM card on it, it can still be used for the internet. And then people were finding out people didn't have the internet. Well, then people were finding out, oh my gosh, there are people in our community who don't have things. Oh, that was a real eye opener, because we're always working, and we don't see what's around us. We forget to look. We don't look our head up. We get, you know, that whole thing. It's an American thing, I think, but it could have some relevance for you all. You know, if you keep your nose to the grindstone, you'll end up with no nose. So the point is, you have to look up at your surroundings periodically as a community and do that. And that's what we were doing. And that's finally, it was like all of a sudden, it was like, I have another favorite book. It's called Stone Soup. It's it's this long story. Yes, Stone Soup. Everybody brings in and
most of the time we are complacent with whatever we have. We are self-complacent, and we just don't go beyond. I always used to say to teachers that we don't visit any nearby school. You are happy with your own school. Why don't you visit the other school and know what's happening over there?
Yes, and just because you ask to do that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just because you want to see what's different or what's happening. And just because you tell people, look, these kids don't have this, you're not complaining, you're just telling. And that's the way I went about it. I went about it on my Facebook groups with parents and families. Oh, and that brings up another point of something else you asked about, and then I'm going to let Nevis talk. But okay, a lot of work that I did right at the very beginning had to do with helping parents, because they all of a sudden felt like they were having to be the teachers. And, you know, I assured them, I said, you don't have to be the teacher. I will be the teacher. But all I need to do is know what's going on that you are having. If you're thinking of a concern, let me know what it is and we'll address it. We'll fix it. We'll make it happen. You know, and I did a lot of that. And I know one little boy became so upset because he couldn't go to school. I don't think he never came out and said this himself, but he started acting in ways that were, like you said, they're all of a sudden they're real responsible. And they're just overwhelmed with the responsibility of what's happening. Well, his dad and he really had good time to spend with each other, and would collect cans and metal and stuff like that, and then they sell it just for pocket money and stuff. And so they were doing that, and his dad got hold of something that cut him, and it was a fairly deep cut, but it wasn't, you know, he didn't have to go to the emergency room or anything. But this little boy became so upset that he ran away from his dad. And we're talking about a kid who's like 6th grade, so probably 11 or 12, but he's an older looking kid. So people think he's 8th or 9th grade. Anyway, I had to, you know, talk with his mom about that. I'm so sorry this happened. Please let us know. We'll try to help. And then I would talk with him and say, you let your mom and dad figure out how to solve these problems. It's okay. This is their job. You know, I mean, I put it to him that way. And then that made him feel better. It really did make him feel better. I don't know that every child would have known that, but I had him long enough to know that I knew that if once I took that burden off of his shoulders, you know, and gave it to someone else who had the experience and age to deal with it, he felt more confident. So there's lots of stories, aren't there? I bet everybody in this room has tons of stories, you know.
Yes. Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to go quickly over the last 3 questions that were put forward by Dr. Pradhan. So the physical aspect, we had that problem too. So this is how we solved it very easily. We got the teachers together for every grade level, and we said, okay, there are 5, we do 5 hours every day in Italy from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we decided to make, for example, have 2 hours, 8, and then have 2 hours online, then 1 hour offline, and then another 2 hours online on one day. Another day, maybe we had 3 hours online, 2 hours offline. Another day, another week, maybe we had.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you say offline means what? After 1 hour, offline means what?
Asynchronous class, a flipped classroom. So instead of sitting in front of the computer and being in an online synchronous activity, they could do an asynchronous activity, which was maybe creating, writing a text, continuing a dialogue, and they didn't have to have their webcam on. They could do it in an offline environment because, for example, with Google Documents, you can have the offline Google Documents. It means you can disconnect from internet, work online, work on your documents, and then when you go back online, they are synced to the cloud. So we did that, and that helped the students with the physical aspect, not having to sit down, maybe in an uncomfortable position or in an uncomfortable chair. Not everyone at home has a proper chair to sit in front of a computer for 10 hours like maybe Sheryl and I do. The other aspect was cyber crimes. Cyber crimes, that's the importance of digital citizenship, as Cheryl explained before. If you are afraid or this cyber crimes is happening, we had it a lot at the beginning. And then we concentrated on teaching our students how to be safe navigators online. And then we closed the Dominion. What did we do? In our G Suite, for example, we made it impossible for students to export into other domains that were not included within the domains that we approved in the G Suite. So you can do that with G Suite. You can't do that if it's their private email. So digital citizenship is important. Teach them the importance of being safe online. Teach them the importance of how to behave online, and then the rest should fall in by itself. And as for hackers, etc., if you build a strong enough firewall in your system, your LMS system, that shouldn't happen. Also with Zoom, for example, a simple password prevents hackers. And the other thing was skills and competence. We mentioned this in the slides, and this is really important. The curriculum must reinforce the basic competences that you need for that topic, and let your students know, so that during the lockdown, during this period, they are continuing to evolve on their competences. Don't leave them behind. This is not a game. It just means that we've gone from face-to-face, online. It's a serious matter, and we just continue. That's why the routine is important. Communication is important. Give them responsibility, and they will respond with maturity. I saw this in 12-year-olds right up until 18-year-olds. So it can be done. And they were the questions. And then, someone said about the earphones. I totally agree. Earphones are a problem. You'll notice Cheryl isn't wearing them because she has a very serious, like she doesn't like them at all. So she never uses them. But it's not important to always use them. It's important to be able to say mute yourself and unmute yourself. That's all that's needed. So the earphones is really a personal thing. Can't live without them.
If I do have to wear headphones, I wear the old-fashioned ones that actually cover your ears. I have an autoneurology problem that the crystals in my inner ear get off balance. And so these earphones not only make my ears hurt because that hurts there, but it can make me get dizzy. So anyway, but those great big old-timey ones that we used to use, those are perfect if I have to wear headphones. But that's why I try to avoid them. But anyway.
Okay, there's a question in the chat that says, how long should an online class be? Well, we had 1-hour classes at school, and we stuck to about 50 minutes. We had 5 minutes in the beginning and 5 minutes at the end where we just let the students unwind, or we finished 10 minutes before. We tried not to make the lessons too short because remember, teachers have to get the work done. The curriculum needs to be done. We can't just take a year off our lives. We don't want to do that to the children. We want to make sure that they continue with the school curriculum, and that at the end of the year, they are able to be promoted to the following year. We don't want to say, oh, we had fun, so you're just going to repeat the year. No, not good enough. We are responsible. We need to make sure that all our teachers across the board are responsible and continue with the school curriculum in a proper manner. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Excuse me. There is a hello. Anil sir, just a minute. Have your teachers got trained for using technology, or is it with the self-training that they have learned?
Well, at our school, we were lucky. we've had G Suite for 6 years, and we have 54 teachers. Only 25 of those teachers were digitally active. The other teachers had never opened the school G Suite account. So when we went into lockdown, I worked 18 hours a day, working in the morning in my classes, and from 2 p.m. until 11 or 12 p.m. helping teachers. Obviously, this was done as part of teamwork, which is really, really important. It's always important to be a team, to share what you know and to help each other. So, but I must admit, everyone was happy to learn, happy to understand, and not all of them can be Google educators, but they really did an amazing job. And really the rest was up to them to continue the curriculum You learn to use Google Meet because we had the G Suite, and learn to upload to the classroom, learn to use Drive, very simple things. I kept it simple. They were able to use it. As I said, the apps, again, we don't need to flood the students with apps. We need to keep it simple, need to give them routine, need to let them know that we are handling the situation and that they can turn to us, and we need to listen to them as well, give them time to talk back. I gave a 1 hour at the end of every 2 weeks. I set aside 1 hour where I had a room opened, and I called it the contact room, and students just came and went and told me what they were feeling, what they had problems with, etc. And that was really good. Though a lot of them were able to offload. Some of them came in just to have a good cry. That was okay. That's what I was there for. So you need to do that as well. Be there for them.
Just one more question. That
Sure.
is the portion of the course curtailed? Since the students can't come to the school, is the portion or the course curtailed, shortened?
The school day is shortened. And go, Cheryl.
Yeah, so I heard you ask that question just a moment ago. So what we've gotten more guidance. I just went to a meeting at our school about a week ago, and what I do is, like, I'm up here in Minnesota. I'm not going to be teaching this fall, but I'm going to be substituting when I go back. And what they told us to do, even as substitutes, we needed to be prepared to be streaming all the time that we're in the classroom teaching a class. And I'm like, okay. But the point that they wanted us to make was the mainstreaming was going to go on for the introduction of the class, right? It was just like a regular class. Everybody just you don't have to, you're not the entertainer. You are the teacher. So you give your introduction and give a compact lesson and give them, like, I have to have things written down. So make sure that you have something written down. If it's just a document or a list of notes or something, and then you give them a task, and then they go off and they do the task, and then you can come back the next day or at another time period and work on that. So as Nevis was saying, the synchronous part is like what we're doing right now. Then they would stop, and then they would go to the asynchronous part. And that's what we've decided. Now, last spring, we did not, how should I say this? We did not grade, quote unquote. We graded everything, but it did not hold against them. They got the grade they got when we left in March. But that was because it was an emergency situation. We couldn't depend that, like, I couldn't ask a kid who didn't even have the internet to do this kind of work that they were doing at school. But in fact, they actually did more, I found. And I had a lot of special ed students, and they did even more than they did under normal circumstances. But does that get close to what you were asking about?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, both of you.
Now, there was a question about parents, and I think that was very, very important. Like I said, some people were not happy. They were showing negative behaviors just like their children do, okay? We can't expect humans to be perfect. And because of that, they would be angry. And we were all angry. We're locked out of our school. We're locked out, things weren't going well. We have to look like everything's cool. We have to look like, okay, I have this, I'm just, yeah. But inside, we're all freaking out too. So here's the deal. I spent a lot of time at the beginning. Remember, it's building foundations. Make sure that that base that you're building this on is solid. Don't have to go back and go back and go back and reassure and build. No, start from the very beginning and talk to the parents about, yes, I understand that this is not good, and tell them, I spent a lot of time talking to parents about things they could do, things they didn't have to worry about, but always to remind them, tell me, call me, text me, email me. I had emails coming from everywhere, but hey, it was great because I could kind of sort through the problems that were showing up. And a lot of times you can evaluate your teaching by that method too. Because if you've got one particular question that keeps showing up, that's either an issue that's related to the school as in general, to your teaching in personally. So it might be some simple thing that is causing the problem, but you need to look at talk to them. And, you know, we live in a rural area. The town that I teach in is fairly large for our area, but it's less than 10,000 people. So, you know, it's not quite so hard to deal with the issues that you might have, that you all have, that are different. Like when I taught in Wichita, which is one of the largest communities in our state, you know, I had 150 students in a day, and I was just one of 8 or 9 teachers in my building who had other students too. So their concerns are going to be different. So I don't know. Okay. I don't know if that gets to what y'all are talking about. Does that help?
Hello, madam.
Yeah, Anil Dalal sir, go for your question.
Hello, madam. Thank you for sharing such a wonderful and innovative ideas. Madam, I have a question. What kind of activities we can conduct for collaborative teaching on online platform? You mentioned about collaborative teaching. How can we conduct collaborative activities on online platform?
Okay, Nevis, you want to talk with that one?
Okay, so basically there are so many things that you can do to get online collaboration. One is one very simple one, which you don't even have to use any other specific apps, is when I had a class and I knew what I was going to do in that class, I would prepare some questions on a Google document. I have 2 monitors, so that's why I'm always doing this. But you don't have to have two monitors. You could have some questions prepared, and I would put them in the chat at certain intervals of the class lesson, and ask them to answer the question or give an opinion. So, and I would wait until they answered or gave their opinion on whatever it was I wrote in the chat. And that's how sometimes I got them to participate without always having to turn on their webcam or their microphone, especially if it wasn't necessary for them to do that. Sometimes I know that using the webcam or the microphone can take up a lot of battery if they're not sitting near the power cord of or maybe they have a low internet. So I made sure that the chat, I always had something for them to do in the chat. And that was really, really interactive. I got responses in the chat that I never got in a classroom. If I would ask a question in a classroom and say, raise your hand, I would get the classic 5 or 6 students. In the chat, I would say, everybody write their answer in the chat. And everybody did. That was fantastic. I've got chat histories that then I downloaded and copied onto a Google document, and I was able to follow the students' line of thinking all the way through the classrooms. That was one way. The other way is I created my own web quests. So what I mean by web quest, it wasn't just a simple web quest. It was always related to what we were doing. So I gave them documents or slides where I had hyperlinked activities. And I'm in the classroom, I shared in the Google Classroom, I shared 1 copy for each student or 1 copy for a group of students. I created groups and I gave them work to do during the lesson. And then sometimes I asked them to present during the lesson. There are a lot of activities that you can get them to collaborate. Just remember, don't do all the talking. If you do all the talking, they're going to fall asleep. You need to actively get them to be active, and the only way to be active is to give them something to do. So when you give them something to do, fall back on the competences that you need to reinforce for your curriculum. My curriculum of English conversation for the higher school students, for them it's about speaking and preparing for the exam. So everything I did that was interactive, even if it was a game, even if it was a web quest, it was all based on improving their skills to pass the exam at the end of the year. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. And the last question now, Kshitij Ankush wants to ask you a question. Unmute microphone, Ankush sir. Kshitij Ankush, are you there? Kshitij Ankush. Hello. No. Okay. Perhaps you might have got the answer in your presentation or the answers you gave others to. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm here. I'm Sakshi Ankush.
You're not audible, ma'am.
Just 1 minute, sir. I'm Sakshi Ankush.
Yeah.
From
little louder, please.
Yeah, just a little louder. I can hear what she's saying, but.
Yes, sir. First of all, I would like to thank eMELTA. Because of them, we could get with a nice time with you. Thank you, ma'am. It's a very informative session. I have 2 questions in my mind. First one is, on which skill you focused more in your online classes? Is it writing skill or oral skill? And my second question is that, do your all students have technical equipments? If not, how do you reach your students?
Okay, I'll just answer that quickly. First of all, in my online classes, if I had to teach them how to improve their writing skills, it was a class that was really one-sided, and I gave them some hints on how to improve their writing skills and gave them activities to do in the chat straight away. And then I gave them work to do offline as far as writing. The rest of the time, my classes are speaking. I need them to speak. They're Italian students who are learning English as a second language or as a foreign language, so they need to improve their speaking. So during the online classes, I promoted speaking a lot more. Whereas in your second question, what was it again? Cheryl, help me remember. I'm getting old.
Equipments.
Yeah. Do your all students have technical equipment?
Oh, yes. Yes.
If not,
yes. Now I remember. Okay, that was really one. We had our education ministry provide immediate funds to all the schools right across Italy. I know this can't happen everywhere, but we were provided with enough funds to buy a tablet or a laptop or a notebook for every single student that didn't have one. So the hardware was provided, and as far as the software that came with the new equipment, obviously, and then the internet. A lot of the companies, like the advertisement I showed you during the presentation, a lot of the national providers of internet came forward and provided quick connective packages at a very, very reasonable price. So everybody was really able to get online. Those that didn't come online, didn't happen at our school. Everybody came online. Everybody wanted to connect. Students needed to feel that life was normal, so they wanted to be online. So in one way or another, they were connected. We were lucky. I know this doesn't happen everywhere, but our education ministry really, really did an amazing thing by providing immediate funding to buy the hardware. Cheryl?
Yes, and that was the same thing with us. A similar thing. So when we got, that's what I was telling you, when we first got online, it was like an emergency. So that's when we found out, we took an inventory. We found out who didn't have what. And those who couldn't get online were provided with paper, worksheets, and instructions, detailed instructions. That was interesting. So anyway, over time, within the next week or two, we found borrowed from our laptops. We had enough kids who did have computers and phones of their own, they were okay. But over the summer, the school district, school board, the governing body of our school district came together, as did most of the schools in Kansas that I know of, and I think other places. They came together and got a lease of equipment. And so it was not a burden for us. We didn't have to like buy them all. So they could lease them for a while. And then I think everybody's hoping that somebody will figure out that we need some money. But who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, everybody has access. In the elementary school, they have an iPad. In the middle school, they have Chromebooks. In the high school, they have laptops because many of them have things like drafting, mechanical type of courses or business courses where they need more capabilities than a Chromebook. So everybody in the school is a one-to-one school now. Some schools were already one-to-one, but of course, remember I said we live in a rural area. So because we live in a rural area, we have lots of people who don't have things that they might get if they lived in the city. They don't even have access to internet because of where they live, not necessarily that they don't have the money to pay for it sometimes. So there you are.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now it's a request to Sanjay Chavan, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please. If
yes. Very good evening to all of you, and I wish you once again a very happy Teachers' Day on behalf of eMELTA. So it was challenges and solutions for remote teaching, and the speakers were Cheryl Mccoy ma'am and Nivesh ma'am from Italy, and Cheryl ma'am from US. So it was a very perfect and a very useful session for all of us, ma'am. So I'm here to express a vote of thanks on behalf of eMELTA. We are really happy to be with you for more than 1.5 hours here. So as you mentioned many things, ma'am, nowadays all the teachers of the world, most of the countries in the world are facing the situation of emergency due to epidemic of this COVID-19. So that's why we are going on online, and online classes are having many problems and challenges for the teachers. So it was a very useful session as you discussed about negatives and positives of online teaching. You also expressed different solutions on all the challenges. I liked basically the things which you mentioned in your speech. Both of you discussed very important points about online teaching. You also shared very important apps to create interest among the students. You also expressed different digital platforms and digital citizenship for the teachers. You also shared very useful links to the teachers. At overall, all these top points and all these things were very useful for all of us. Madam, I would like to express my humble gratitude towards you for a very planned and very informative session for all of us. Thank you so much, both of you. Once again, I express my humble thanks to you. I also take the opportunity to express my humble thanks to Honorable Dr. Umesh Pradhan sir, our mentor, our guide for all this session. This was the 71st session, ma'am. And for all the sessions, Dr. Pradhan is there with us. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable guidance. Yeah, and your ideas. Thank you so much. I also express my humble gratitude towards Honorable Shaileja Mule, ma'am, for expressing her ideas every day and in every session. And today she introduced the speakers in a very, very perfect manner. Thank you, ma'am. I also express, I also express my humble gratitude towards Anil Dalal, sir. Basically, I have to express my humble thanks to our leader, our president, Sahebra Mahajan, sir, for his efforts to arrange all these webinars for the teachers in this situation. And the speakers like you, on the very special day of Teachers' Day, you are with us. And we enjoyed your co-teaching, that is, as Dr. Pradhan said, team teaching, pair teaching, I can say. It was really nice, ma'am. We enjoyed it very much. All the teachers, I read the chats on Facebook and Zoom too. I also express my humble gratitude towards Ashpa Kaji sir, our member of eMELTA, Manoj
He
Naikwadi.
introduced the speakers to us.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned him. Basically, Ashpak sir just gave opportunity to all the teachers to listen. Sheryl ma'am and Nivesh ma'am. Thank you so much, Ashpak sir. I also express my humble gratitude towards Manoj Naikwadi sir, Saili Mahajan ma'am, and all eMELTA committee members and all dignitaries who attended today's webinar, and all the participants on Zoom and Facebook. Thank you, friends, for being with us. Thank you so much. Over to Mahajan sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay sir, for the vote of thanks. Now, I declare that the today's, Ashfaq sir, do you want to say something?
Yes, sir. I think we should invite them for further also. I think they will help us with another topic which will be more interesting. I think you will invite both of them.
Yes. Definitely, sir. Yeah, certainly. No problem.
And special one thing, sir, I have to appreciate both of the speakers that they were answering in the chat also. They answered all the questions. That is very important thing. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, Mahajan sir.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Now I declare that the today's webinar comes to an end here. Thank you, Nivesh ma'am, Sheryl ma'am, Dr. Umesh Pradhan, Shailaja Mukhoy ma'am, and all the eMELTA community members, all the participants who attended the today's webinar through Zoom meeting, and the Facebook viewers. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
We
Welcome
love
to India.
teachers.